Few things unite a country in argument like a railway. Not a small one, the giant kind, the ones that promise to reshape a nation and end up dividing it. These are the most controversial rail projects on Earth, and the hard engineering lessons buried inside them. Every few years, somewhere in the world, a government stands up and bets tens of billions on steel and concrete. High-speed rail to bind regions together, cut carbon, spark growth. And then, again and again, the same thing happens. The costs explode, the timelines slip by decades, and the politics turn poisonous. This isn't bad luck. It's a pattern so consistent that researchers gave it a name, the megaproject paradox. It starts with optimistic cost and demand models to win approval. Then land and permitting come in higher than planned. Then the ground itself springs surprises. And what began as a bold network ends up truncated, slowed, and over budget. Economists call the root cause optimism bias, the tendency to assume the best case at the very moment uncertainty is highest. Compound a few years of delay with a few points of escalation, and the actual cost doesn't creep past the estimate. It multiplies past it, sometimes 3 or 4 times over. To see how, we'll follow 5 projects that turned into political battlegrounds in California, Britain, Mexico, and the heart of Europe. Same promise, same paradox. 5 very different ways to learn the lesson the hard way. Start in California. In 2008, voters approved a bullet train from San Francisco to Los Angeles in under 3 hours. The price tag, around $33 billion, finished by 2020. Today, the completion date is more than a decade late, and Phase 1 is estimated at closer to 90 to 130 billion. The controversy isn't just the money, it's the sequencing. Facing funding limits, the authority chose to build the middle first, a stretch through the Central Valley, from Merced to Bakersfield. Critics call it a train from nowhere to nowhere, a line running far from the very cities that were supposed to justify it. And the numbers are unforgiving. That isolated segment is projected to cost over $150 million a year to run, while fares might cover barely a quarter of it. The rest is a permanent subsidy. The completed Caltrain electrification into San Jose is real progress, but it also means the bullet train will crawl through the cities, not the sleek service voters were promised. Cross the Atlantic to Britain, and the story rhymes. High Speed 2 was launched in 2010 to link London with Birmingham, Manchester, and Leeds, and to unclog the West Coast Main Line, one of the busiest mixed-traffic railways in Europe. But as costs climbed, the government did something drastic. It canceled the northern legs to Manchester and Leeds entirely, leaving only the stub between London and Birmingham under construction. The problem? Cut the network in half, and you cut its benefits far more than half. The remaining line now delivers a fraction of the value for a staggering share of the cost. To claw back money, planners even dialed the top speed down, from 360 kilometers per hour to 320. That let them skip building a bespoke test track and use standard European testing, saving up to £2.5 billion. But passengers into Euston now aren't expected until somewhere between 2040 and 2043, and the National Audit Office has warned the reset is still fragile. Now to Mexico, and a project where the fight was less about money and more about the ground itself. The Tren Maya is a 1,554-kilometer loop across the Yucatan Peninsula, linking beach resorts to ancient Maya cities, built in just 4 years. To hit that deadline, the government used military construction crews and bypassed standard environmental reviews. It ran the line through rainforest, protected reserves, and one of the most delicate landscapes on the continent, the Yucatan's honeycomb of limestone caves, underground rivers, and cenotes. Here's the engineering problem. The Yucatan has almost no surface rivers. Its water flows through caves beneath a fragile limestone roof. To carry the railway across Section 5, engineers drove more than 15,000 concrete-encased steel piles straight through that rock. And that creates 3 quiet risks. The vibration of passing trains can crack a thin cave roof. Cement slurry can leak into the aquifer, and where fresh water meets salt, the halocline, corrosion can attack the steel from within. In 2026, After reports of cracking and sinking in the support pillars, the government ordered a safety review of those very foundations. Financially, the line runs deep in the red. Ticket revenue covers barely a tenth of its running costs, with the state subsidizing almost the entire budget. To close the gap, the operator is now rolling out freight services. Head to Germany, and the controversy moves underground. Approved back in 2001, Stuttgart 21 aims to bury the city's old dead-end terminus and replace it with an underground through station, freeing prime downtown land above. But opponents point to a hard trade-off. The redesign cuts the station from 16 platforms down to 8, less capacity, in exchange for that land. And beneath Stuttgart lies swelling gypsum rock, a geological headache that has helped push costs past 11 billion euros. The railway's own latest audit puts it near 14.5, with the opening now phased out to 2033. And finally, high in the Alps, a project that shows a different failure, not of engineering, but of coordination. The Brenner-based tunnel will bore under the mountains between Austria and Italy to shift freight off the roads and onto rail. The tunnel itself is on track to open around 2032. But a tunnel is only as useful as the lines feeding it. The northern access route through Germany's Inn Valley, slowed by local opposition, isn't expected until 2040, 8 years after the tunnel opens. A world-class piece of engineering, forced to wait most of a decade for the rest of the network to catch up. So what do 5 very different projects have in common? 3 lessons. First, risk gating. Don't start major construction until you've secured most of the land. Second, model the geology honestly. Price in karst and water risk before you commit to a route. And third, protect the network. Truncating a line to save money today usually destroys the value that justified it in the first place. Controversial doesn't always mean wrong. These projects may yet prove their worth. But every one of them is a reminder that the hardest part of a great railway isn't laying the track. It's telling the truth about what it will cost and where it needs to go. Thanks for watching Learn Railways.